Present.
Bill Powell,
He called and he may be a little late.
Maddie Koval,
Here.
Ray Cruz,
I haven't talked to Commissioner Cruz, so I assume he'll be here a little late.
Dave Richard,
I did speak with Commissioner Richard. He didn't think he would be able to make the meetings.
Scott Boris.
Here.
And Rick Shirley.
Late, but you haven't started. Decision on the law.
But it was not a voting meeting, so we started.
Financial staff reports? All right.
The Housing Authority for the month of August had a $69,000 net profit. And as you may have noticed in the year-to-date column, we have a $116,000 net profit. So I would say if you look from the July report to the August report, the math doesn't exactly add up. It's because the accounts have been going through the audit. When the audit closes, they make some final adjustments. So they've been making some of those adjustments. That's why we roll forward a few things into the roll forward a few things. So that's part of the reason, but primarily it's been the superb performance of our public housing program, which we'll get to in a second. In the public housing program, there was a $98,000 net profit for the month and a $363,000 net profit year to date. So we are right on track to where we expected to be. A couple months ago, we mentioned we probably have about a $700,000 net profit for the year. August is the 6th month of our fiscal year, so we're right on track to hit that number. The Section 8 program, for the month, we had a $12,000 net profit. That is mostly due to our administrative program running below cost. The HAP is we're still spending more than we're getting in, though not nearly as much. I think year to date we have a $114,000 net loss, which is pretty much the same number we've carried for the last 3 or 4 months. We've kind of been keeping that even. One other comment to make, and I know I sent an email to all the commissioners, on the all accounts page, the very first page of the financials, in the year-to-date column where it says over and under budget, there was a calculation error. The numbers didn't carry over, they didn't do the addition and subtraction correct. It's on your tablets on the main page, it's the second file there. Also, I emailed it to each of you if you want to review it, but it doesn't change materially the financials, just the over and under budget amounts, and I'd like to thank Commissioner Boris for pointing that out to me. Other
Keith, one of the lines that were way better than budget is maintenance contracts.
Mhm.
So maybe
that'll change.
That'll change.
Yeah.
Is that a timing thing, or
Yeah,
is that
well, it's a couple things. One, we've managed to do a lot of things in-house. You know, we did most of the housing work, the upgrades to the houses. We've done those in-house. Traditionally, we would have outsourced that kind of work. The other change is, we're still doing the office, and that's going to be almost completely contracted. So a lot of that has been captured in the budget and that, so we're just waiting to do it. So it will catch up to you later. It's unfortunate. I like that. It looks nice, but it won't stay.
won't stay nice?
Commissioner Cruz, welcome.
Good afternoon,
How you
everybody.
doing?
My apologies for
Spiffing
being
up today.
tardy.
He's got the suspenders and everything.
Big presentation this afternoon.
Are there any other, I'm sorry, Commissioner Cruz, we just went over the financials, so if you have any questions.
No, I didn't. They looked fine to me.
Are there any questions on the listed bills?
I have one question.
Yes, sir.
Because somewhere in the monthly report it was mentioned, but there's this emphasis software.
Mm-hmm.
Is that going to be? Are you going to talk about that later? Or if not, would you talk about it now? Just what?
Sure. The Emphasis software is our computer software, but they also consult for us. They handle all of our accounting. So there are some expenses in there. You'll see that jump up around if they're doing special projects for us accounting-wise. The year-end audit is one of those where they charge a little bit extra because they handle the audit as well.
Okay.
So that's when we're talking about the accountants were making those adjustments. Emphasis also does, they do our accounting as well. We will touch on the new software that we're getting. Are there any other questions?
Any questions? Any more questions? Staff report?
As you saw in the reports, we have completed the waiting list purge. September 6th was the last day for the purge. We have now started the process of kind of looking at everybody who did not respond to our phone call and our letters, taking them off the waiting list, and that has shown a very, very serious need to reopen the waiting list for public housing. So what we will be doing sometime in October, probably around the 15th is the planned date for right now, is reopening the waiting list. If you've noticed in the reports too, there are some contradictory items that are actually listed, a 2-week period. Maria's report actually has 30 days. Maria's the expert there, so I'm going to limit it to 30 days. But ideally what we need to do is get enough people back on the waiting list that we can substantiate the number of housing units that we have and support those when vacancies do come up. Because in our public housing program, as you've seen in the reports, it does change hands on a regular basis. We're doing 5 to 10 turnover. So we want to be able to fill those units. And not everybody who's on the waiting list will need housing. That's another issue that comes up. Some of the people find housing on their own as well. So we need to reopen that. We're looking at how to do so to avoid having a line of people in front of the building. I've seen, unfortunately, at other housing authorities where they have that problem. The HUD and the news have been very outspoken on some of those housing. I know there's one in Georgia, Dallas Housing Authority had that problem where they handled it in a manner in which people showed up at the building and stood in line at the building, and it created a little bit of chaos. So we'd like to avoid that. So we're considering opening the waiting list only online and taking phone calls for those individuals that need accommodations. We're also looking at some other means of addressing this. We don't have long lines in front of the building, people standing outside for applications. As you may have noticed, we are continuing to work diligently on our new office. Carlos has been working very hard to kind of keep that moving. We have full architectural specs at this point. We're just doing some final changes as far as the layout of the building. One of the things I think should be noted is the fact that we initially, over 10 years, projected, as we did the comparisons before, $660,000 was basically the overall budget for the development. We expect it to be under $400,000, so that's 40% less. And that's been through, some of the changes we made. We took out some of the more luxury items. We took out the disco ball, that kind of stuff. But we found ways to kind of cut costs, limit the overall expense for that. And again, over beyond a 10-year period, which is just what we showed in the presentation for the board a few months ago, the savings go well beyond just a couple $100,000. The savings continue to add up as you really capitalize those costs over 20 or 30 years. And also, we've been working with just met with Pete Wilson, one of our legal counsel, on our private management company. I know that's something we put in the strategic plan that we we're going to be rolling out. So we started working on the fine print there, the legalities, trying to figure out how to get that written in, get that started up. So that'll be something you'll be seeing a lot more of. That's probably our next big administrative project, is really getting that structured and set up and up and running. So I think, initially planned for that by the end of the fiscal year, so that's March. It might take a little longer than that just because of some of the legalities, but we will get to a point very shortly where we're kind of talking that up, presenting things before the board as far as how that's going to look and how it will be set up. And also, and Commissioner Boris mentioned this before, we did sign a quote recently to move forward with paperless software. So Emphasis handles our computing software as well as some of our accounting, but one of the things they have in their software is a paperless document handling software. So we have file cabinets with tenant folders. Some people have been here long enough to have 2 tenant folders side by side that are 2-3 inches thick. This software will allow us to scan all that information. It'll be hosted on the cloud and backed up by our server company. We won't need the large files. We won't need to print off all these thousands of dollars worth of documents. Anything that we do print off comes with the barcode residents filled out. When we scan it in through our scanners, it automatically places it right back in the tenant's file. So there's no privacy concern with paperwork being laying around. So on the computer, we have a lot more control over how that paperwork is handled there, and hopefully it'll streamline things for our staff as well. Yes.
Back to the waiting list.
Mm-hmm.
I think you said you're going to, not you, but I'm just using you. When you select someone, you really mention a lottery type?
That's one of the ways. Traditionally, it's been first come, first served. And that, of course, creates a situation where everybody is trying to be the first person in line. So if I say I'm going to open a waiting list on October 15th, October 14th, it's very possible that we might have a lot of people out here waiting overnight so that they can be the first person in line, just because they know that there are going to be more people than there are spaces. So what housing authorities have done, housing authorities have done to address that is have a lottery. So over the time period that the waiting list is open, we take all the applications, and after that point in time, a computer system assigns everybody a number, and then randomly organizes each one of those people. So it's a random lottery handled by a computer. That way, there's no need for anybody to rush down here and be the first person in line. It kind of diffuses that.
Okay.
For my informational purposes, the waiting list, does HUD require us to have a certain amount of people on that waiting list? Are there any requirements on, it should be this big, this small, this is?
I'll have to check and see if I don't know of any specific requirements as to a fixed number. What HUD generally says is the waiting list must be adequate to support your total housing needs. So in the course of a month, we know that we lose 5 to 10 applicants, and we also know it takes 3 applicants to replace 1.
Right.
So that means we need 30 applicants. But
And we got a lot more than that.
Right, but for each bedroom size, you want to have at least, I think most housing authorities try to keep about 100 people per
And then-
bedroom size.
And then again, for informational purposes for me, now that we've kind of purged the list, do we have to, by law, put it in the paper one last time, something like that, or have you guys already done that?
There's no requirement. It's obviously probably the better thing to do is to put it out there. And we will place it in the newspaper that we're going to reopen the waiting list. We'll probably give a couple days or a week's notice prior to doing that. Just as a matter of getting people the information. It'll also be on our website, obviously on our other social media pages as well.
I think just to kind of cover us though, and trust me, I don't like spending the money for doing it, but I think just as doing it better than expected, if you put it in the paper, we can always go back and say, hey, look, we gave notice here, and nobody can, kind of come back at us and say you're not doing things properly.
Certainly.
Keith, how does the priority or the point system that you presented to us a few months back or last month, how does that tie into the waiting list and the ordering and how those go together?
It won't play so much into getting on the waiting list. What it will affect is how quickly someone comes off the waiting list. So once we get a waiting list and it's sufficient in size, so we've got 100 people for, say, the 2-bedroom waiting list, then we'll use the preferences to determine how quickly we go through, we pull somebody off of that list.
So how does it work between I've been on the list for 2 years versus I got on the list in October, but I got points from, because I was a veteran or a senior or whatever?
Well, it's a 2-pronged system, and Maria and I are kind of working on some of the kind of fine print on that, because what we've created with the preferences is a means by which certain individuals would jump a lot of people in that list. So obviously you don't want to create a situation where somebody who signed up today gets in front of somebody who signed up 2 years ago. That's
right.
just, there's no good way to do that. So we're actually trying to work out a resolution to that, so that maybe within a 30-day time period or 60-day time period, we apply the preferences in groups like that, or some other means to make it a little bit more fair.
Okay.
I mean, there are institutions though where you do jump to the head of the line for certain reasons. I just don't know what they would be. Like at the police department, if you're a cadet and there's an officer opening, those cadets literally will pass 500 people and jump to the front of the line. So.
And it's the same way with HUD, for example. If you have any kind of military background, those employee applicants typically get a preference over general public applications. I'm not saying that's the way necessarily that we should handle it. We want to try and be as fair as possible. Like I said, I would like not to see somebody who signed up in this new opening jump somebody who's been on the waiting list for 3 years. I just can see where that would create a problem. It's just tricky as to how, and really, sometimes it becomes tricky as to how you manage that. But we will try and find a way to make it the most sense out of it.
How does HUD say to do it?
See, that's
Bad question.
Yeah, they don't. The waiting list is one of the things. They have kind of basic guidelines as far as what you can't do. You can't give somebody a preference for race, for example, but they don't say how to do it.
Rate it.
Which is exactly why you have some of the situations that you have.
But you can reach out to your contacts across the country.
I was on the phone this morning with people from Pittsburgh. They just did their Section 8 waiting list, so I'll have some information soon.
Cool.
Obviously, we got to figure that out before we open up the list.
Yeah, that's.
Great.
So based on the number of occupied units here, the waiting list is for what? For the scattered sites? Because none of these units be available.
Well, the waiting list will be for all of our unit sizes. What I'd really like to have is at least one person per unit available. So we have, 504 standing units. I'd like to have at least 504 people on the waiting list, good applicants who we know need the housing. That way, as units for whatever reason come offline, we have somebody at the right place, ready to move in. Yes, it does create a situation where, you signed up, you have to wait. And it's not the best situation for people to be in, but at the same time, we have to have a certain number of people, I would think, for the support of each unit in case somebody gets evicted or fails to pay rent or just moves out. Hopefully, as Kim's program progresses, we're moving out a lot of people for good reasons, and we want to have, a number of people to replenish that.
Thank you, Keith.
Okay.
As you can see on our waiting list numbers, those numbers have dropped a bit. Those numbers will change again going into next month, just because we are still in the processing of getting letters out to those people that will be removed through the purge process. This month I've also included the Reddit house phone number, so these are people who are currently have been pulled off of the waiting list and went through the final eligibility. All they're waiting for is for a unit to become available, and we can place those tenants into those units. As Mr. Gregory mentioned earlier, we will have to be reopening our waiting list. We're looking at October 15th. We're looking for a full month for that waiting list to be open, just to allow everyone an opportunity to be able to get in or get to the website and apply that way. The lottery is probably going to be our best option, just so, as you mentioned, we don't get a huge crowd on that first day trying to make sure they're the number one person on that list. As far as the Maple Terrace stuff going on, we got the last of our fire victims to a unit. The work has begun over on the second floor, and as you can see on the Ready to House poll, we're trying to get people ready so we can call multiple applicants in at one time and we can do a lease up as soon as possible. Site activities, you'll see we had quite a busy month. We had stuff going on and stuff scheduled, such as Fire Prevention Month is coming up in October. There's cervical cancer and other presentations by the VNA that are coming up. Some other things, there's bake sales, there was a trip to the zoo over in Eastwood. There's a fitness program that's going to be starting as well over at Eastwood. Some of the other things going on at the sites, we've recently we partnered with Allied Waste to bring garbage bins and recycling bins to 98 units who were responsible for purchasing their own garbage stickers. They will no longer have to purchase those, as the Housing Authority will take on the cost. There are 29 clients and on that Ross program, and we're looking to expand that. They're still working hard over at Maple Terrace with the community service stuff.
There are no questions from Maria. Jimmy actually had to attend a funeral, so he couldn't be with us today. Basically, just the kind of short version of his report, we have been working on 730 Richard Street extensively. It's pretty much done. I think there's a few items that need to be taken care of as far as painting and some final touch-ups that need to be taken care of. But we'll finish that and move right into Manor, which is our third. Commissioner Powell's there. Which is our third scatter site upgrade. We've already identified our fourth. So we're just kind of moving along on that, continuing to do the upgrades. One of the things we have decided to do is create a set group of upgrades. What we've been running into is that, as we've done the upgrades, they've been kind of very individual. The first 3-4 units have been very individual. There's no standardization between the units, and though it's nicer, it creates a situation where the maintenance staff have a very hard time keeping up with it, because every house has all these different pieces. It takes a little bit longer to order things. If something breaks, it's going to take longer for us to fix things. We end up using a little bit extra time, spending a little bit extra money. What we've decided to do is come up with about 5 different upgrades that will be consistent. So if we go into a unit and we say this is gonna be unit set 1, it'll have a set of upgrades. Cabinets will look like this, paint, the floor, everything has been thought out and matched, and it's still an upgrade of the very same level that we did at Brighton, but we just don't have to go through in each unit and individually pick out what we're trying to do. So that way, we save a little time, we save a little money, and it makes it much easier for the maintenance staff to do the upkeep. Obviously, as Maria said, we've now started on the repairs at Maple Terrace. Our restoration company's been in there. We actually just had the city come in. We were having an issue with the building is set up in kind of a wing system. So it's 2 floors separated by the elevator shaft. On one side of the elevator shaft, there really wasn't any smoke damage, and those units could be easily fixed and repaired. On the other side was all the smoke damage. The hallway actually looks like a horror movie. I was trying to see if I could find anybody who wanted to make a movie in it for Halloween. I was confined to any money that way though. But so we got the city to come in and approve an occupancy permit. Well, they haven't approved it yet, but we have to make some blockage and make some access. Once we take care of that, we'll actually get the permit to release 1/2 of the building once we make the necessary repairs. So that helps because it brings back people, it brings back rent, and it starts to kind of return the building to a little bit of normalcy. And as always, we still are working on the office, Jericho Circle. We are, like I said, in design phase. We've done pretty much all the demolition now. We actually have a meeting tomorrow morning with the architects at the site, just figure out a few final things. Once we get that taken care of, we can imagine we'll get the contractors in and get everybody moving.
What time is that meeting tomorrow?
9 o'clock.
9 o'clock. I might try to sneak over if I can.
Are there any questions for Jim, who's not here?
Where's Richard Street?
I'm the wrong person to ask you.
Elmwood and
North of Galena?
Illinois, going back north, Illinois, New Haven, Richards, and Roberts. What's the Roberts?
In between Indian Trail and Illinois?
It's between Indian Trail and Illinois, yeah.
His highway runs into it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it is highway.
Yeah,
I was access on Fulton and Trail.
yeah,
It's pretty close to Elmwood, and it doesn't run very long.
right, it's only
There's a number of,
3 blocks, 4
a lot
blocks.
of townhomes.
I don't know what the street is. I don't remember.
Small town.
One of the other things Maria mentioned, we did make the adjustment to provide dumpsters, the cans, the garbage cans for all of our scattered site units and some of the residents at Eastwood. That change, it does, the residents don't have to be bothered with going to get the trash. They have the convenience of a dumpster on site. We take on the cost of releasing the dumpster from, or not dumpster, but the
Talking about
garbage.
like one of those kind of
The
stand-up
blue-
units?
Yes, the blue cans that you roll out.
Yeah.
That changed, and we rolled it out over all of our scattered site units and the units at Eastwood that were having the trash issues. Actually, will save the agency about $10,000 to $15,000 a year. We actually spent more on the garbage stickers that we gave the residents, the allowance that we gave for the stickers, and we would end up spending on the cards. Are there any other questions?
So it's cheaper to have the bins than to pay for the stickers.
It is, yeah.
That's crazy.
The utility allowance was on average about $31 a month. The bins cost $18. So.
Then they wasn't using the stickers anyway, so.
Yeah, it became a problem too. So, are there any other questions?
What's, the number on Manor?
558.
558.
558?
Just east of Highland.
Okay. Next.
So we talked a little bit, about all the changes that we made in the past year. So we decided, let's wrap it all up for you. Try and make this quick. I don't want to run this forever.
Right, you got something to do, you kind of speeding it up today.
Well, I figured, you guys wanted to get home and have dinner. So we want to just kind of recap real quickly everything that we had done in the past year. So we'll start with our operational and technology improvements. And what you have, probably the very first thing that we did when I got here, we upgraded the communication software. We went with Google software, which gives us access to Gmail, gives us access to the video conferencing, instant messaging, all these things that allow the staff to be able to communicate no matter where they are, so long as they have a mobile phone, They can access their files practically anywhere, and I've actually pulled up files when I was at City Hall, pulled up files when I'm out of town, and I can look at everything. It doesn't matter where. We're not tied to our desks anymore. We went with the YouTube channel, and one of the things that the board stressed early on was transparency. You can't really get any more transparent than having the whole meeting unedited online for anyone to see. One of the things that's happened with that, I've gotten calls from HUD in Dallas, the field office in Dallas called and congratulated us for taking that step. They were very impressed to see a housing authority do that. And as we've all kind of struggled with learning tablets, and we'll address that a little bit next month, but just that change alone from not printing saves about 3 hours of staff time and about $3,000 in paper and printing costs. It seems like a small change, but it has a huge impact on just how much more flexible we can be. Anytime we need to, at the last minute, add something, I'll have to print off 35 copies. I can just add it to the tablets and we're ready to go. It also has been come in handy as we're off-site. I mean, if as we go to a more wireless and web-based agency, these tablets will come in more use as our caseworkers and our site manager are able to actually do site visits and home visits and take these with them, sign in, handle all the application, the recertification transaction right there on the tablet. We did realign the organizational chart. We tried to create, a little bit more efficiency, remove some of the bureaucracy we've got. We had a few layers there. We kind of realigned. We got people who were already here into positions I think better suited their talents, and also kind of helped the agency out as well. In November, of course, we started our Ross program, which has grown and continues to grow, and we just reported to HUD all of the activities that we did this year, which was above their expectations for us. The original request was well below what we had done, so we've gone above and beyond what we needed to. We've had a good success rate. Of course, we want to do more. And that's always been the push for that kind of program, is to do more and include more people. But certainly, I think for a first year, I think we had a very good and productive first year. More recently, we've gone with our Facebook and Twitter presence, which has brought in housing authorities from as far away as Minneapolis to pay attention to things that are going on here. So even as we take small steps, they provide a big footprint for the agency as far as how what we're doing here is changing the environment here, and we're allowing other housing authorities to see and become interested in what we've got going on here. We'll talk about property management and developments. This is probably the big one. The tiered housing program is a first of its kind nationwide program. I have yet, and I've looked because I wanted to know if I was doing something wrong, but I have yet to find a housing authority that has done anything of this nature internally. Of course, housing authorities do development, they do redevelopment, and those look nice, but it's not anywhere to the level that we've done, and we've done it ourselves, which is really a testament to the kind of workers that we have and the kind of people we have working here. We don't have to wait for tax credits. We're not at the mercy of IDA to fund this. We can do it ourselves whenever we're ready. The amenities provided are as nice as you'll find in any private market. And if you look at an Amley apartment, I think you'd be hard pressed to find one that looked better than ours. We found a deal and got granite countertops for our house on Manor. So, we've been able to really put some market rate amenities in these units, and hopefully it creates a sense of home and a sense of pride in the units. And that's really important, that people can be proud of the units that they live in, and also give people motivation to want to move up so that they can be eligible for these units. And that's really what the tiered housing program does. And one of the things we focus on is return on investment. We don't want to be accused of just blindly upgrading and making this the luxury housing authority of the world. It's not about that. These are financial decisions. They have a return on investment. We want between 5 and 20 years of a return on investment for any project that we do, because otherwise we really, in my opinion, have wasted taxpayer dollars if we can't show where this benefits us in the long run.
Keith, why are you calling it tiered housing as opposed to scattered site housing?
I only call it tiered housing as it relates to, and this is just more so for this presentation, but as it relates to the fact that initially we created the tier 3, 2, and 1. The scattered sites were the tier 3, the top level of housing. We haven't started working on our tier 2s, which are in the apartment complexes. They're the high, top floor kind of units, nicer views. Right. But we will be doing those probably next year.
Okay. Just wanted a clarification on.
The Jericho Circle project, and the architect made a good point. Nationwide, if you look, especially in Chicago and a lot of major cities, they're doing what's called adaptive reuse, and it's a fancy name for taking a building you already own and turning it into something else. I like it because it doesn't say the word Jericho, and everybody freaks out when you say Jericho. So we'll call it our adaptive reuse per office project. That's the cornerstone of our rebranding. I mean, what that does for us is really gives us a location that speaks volumes about the kind of agency that we have. It's going to be a modern, very upgraded and technologically advanced facility. We're going to try and find as many green activities we can have there, thermal heating, solar panels, any way that we can, make that property and make that office a real symbol for what the agency is going to be about. Also, we talk about professionalism, so we've taken our offices, and we talk about the offices at Southwind and at Eastwood. We'll actually start working on the office at Indian Trail once we work through how to upgrade it. It's got some other challenges there, but all of our offices, our site offices, are going to be professional offices. They're going to be modernly colored. They're going to be they'll have informational screens up showing residents, different things that they can do in our properties. Strategic planning and our corporate mission. As you all know, we spent a lot of time, I know I did, redoing the strategic plan, the 5-year plan, and really adjusting, some of the things that make up who we are as an agency. We just recently approved a new ACOP, which kind of mirrors the overall strategic plan. Our application has been updated to include new preferences. It should be easier to fill out. It's much shorter. I think it presents itself better, and it's been prepared in English and Spanish, which is a big deal considering the demographic makeup of this city. I think we have not done enough historically to reach out across all racial boundaries, all demographic boundaries, and that's something that our new application intends to do. The strategic plan is I'm not having any really words. It's the big kind of thing we did this year. It was a $60 million 5-year plan. It's the largest plan this housing authority has ever done. It calls for technological advancement, new development of new products, private management company, the rebrand. These are all things that the housing authorities don't typically do, and those that do are typically considered the top performers. You're talking about your DCs, your Miamis, your Washington, your Seattle housing authorities, your moving to work agencies that actually have more flexibility than we do. We've managed to create a plan that is well within HUD guidelines, yet doesn't rely on the flexibilities and extra funding that a lot of housing authorities require in order to accomplish what we've accomplished. And Rick, I think, said it best in the paper at one point in time that it was collaborative, and that was the point. The days, I think, of us having an adversarial relationship with the city have come to an end. I hope so, anyway. We need to work together, and that's really a big part of the relationship that we try to develop and of who we become as a housing authority. We are a community partner, and we really need to emphasize on the partner part. Sometimes, of course, we're going to disagree. We're going to go in different directions. At times, that's going to happen. And as a body, sure, we'll need to do that. But at the end of the day, we want to maintain an open dialogue with not just the city, but with any group that works to better the city of Aurora. So a little bit briefly on some of the accomplishments we've had this year, some of the things I guess we're probably most proud of. When I got here, the Housing Choice Voucher Program was bleeding about $80,000 a month. I think those first 2 months we lost $160,000 in 2 months. We looked at how we leased our properties, how we handled our vouchers, and by changing how many of the new vouchers we leased and by changing the fair market rents, we saved nearly $69,000 a month. That savings, as you will see in our reports, we have profits in a program that once ran $60,000 and $70,000 and $80,000 losses a month. Now we're showing we're breaking even, and we're having profits. Again, we've improved the relationship with the city. Sure, there is more work to be done, but I think we're definitely on the right path to making those improvements. Yes, that's it.
When we did that, so we're essentially lowering the rents that are reimbursed to the landlords. Is that?
Yeah.
And so does that then fall on the tenants, or is it the landlord's taking less rent, or do we know that?
It's twofold. The landlords are taking less rent. Now, it wasn't an instant drop for those new landlords. For those landlords who've been on the program, they didn't have to just say, okay, well, tomorrow I'm only getting, $100 when I was getting $110. They have a 2-year time frame, a window to kind of scale that down to the new rents. And by that time, more than likely with the market improving, hopefully we'll see some improvements in how much money we're receiving, hopefully. But I think the major change there was that we stopped leasing new units. So when somebody came off the program, we just didn't release that voucher. We did that in order to manage, the cash flow. We just couldn't continue to survive at the rate that we were. The media relations, I think, improved. And in 2013, I don't remember really any bad stories, any particularly negative stories about the housing authority. The last one we had was about the OIG audit, which was back in about November or December. So, and I'm not going to say it's the newspaper. They have a right to print what they want. They won't always be good stories. But I think, it's important that overall the stories at least, read better. They have quotes. We've opened our dialogue. They can call and ask questions. They used to have to FOIA everything. I think by opening that relationship, we've had more of an impact on how the stories are written and had more of a say in the quotes that were provided. Again, they're not always the best though. We've improved our transparency. We did the public process for Jericho Circle. I think one of the things, with that public process, we did a lot of extra work to make it work and make it happen. But I think ultimately it shows when we make a decision. And now when we say that we're going to make a decision on Jericho Circle, it's not news. It says a lot when we've done something so openly that it doesn't strike a chord with anybody really. I think that in and of itself speaks to how much we've done to inform the public and be more transparent in our transactions. And one of the things I'm probably very, very pleased with, most pleased about, is the fact that HUD cut back our funding dramatically. These are cuts that housing authorities haven't seen, and in the last couple of years, these are more than we've had to deal with. And yet, we've actually improved our services and haven't decreased staff as a result. We've actually provided more jobs, and we've done more work, even in the face of less money. So it shows that as a staff, as a housing authority, we're being efficient. We're taking advantage of opportunities where we can save money, and we're utilizing what we do have in the best possible way. As we close, and we already talked about, in the fiscal year 2013, when we closed that in March, we had a $1 million surplus in our public housing program. We're on pace for about $700,000 this year. These aren't, world record-breaking numbers, but for a housing authority this size, this is a good cash flow to have. That's money that, in the face of HUD cutbacks in the future, we've got supplies, we've got funding that will keep our public housing functioning, open. We don't have to worry about laying people off or closing the doors or anything like that. Again, we've received nationwide accolades for how we've improved transparency, how we've done our unit upgrades. We're actually on a conference call tomorrow with the Affordable Housing magazine. They are a nationwide industry magazine. They're doing a small, I assume a small piece on the housing authority on some of the upgrades we've made. So again, we're starting to, people are starting to notice that we're making
cover
changes.
photo?
I don't know, I'm gonna put on my good suit just in case. We have the 40s, and we haven't abandoned redevelopment either. And that's another thing, in light of all the things we did have to stop doing, we didn't abandon the redevelopment. We are still working on a 40-unit tax credit development, and we have done so in a way that the community supports, I think the city supports, and I think at the end, we're gonna house the elderly, disabled, and veterans, which is a group of people that probably need and deserve our help. Probably, I'm not gonna say deserve more than anybody, but as a group, they've given more, and I will say they probably deserve that help a little bit more than some others. So.
And those are the people that this organization is set up to help.
Exactly. Those that can't help themselves, and this is exactly what this project aims to do. So and that's a brief financial, just some of the things we talked about. The Section 8 savings alone is almost $500,000, $3,000 on the tablets, and then the changes to, we actually changed our phone service. We got a bundle with Comcast Business Services, so we have, at all of our sites now, we have basic cable, phone and internet, and we've gone away from some of the individual AT&T lines that we've had. So we've been able to save a lot of money on that as well. So now we're going to talk, I want to hold this off for 1 second. When I was a kid, we used to do, me and my dad used to always go to these car shows. They used to bring me to Chicago, we'd go to the car show. My favorite part of the car show was the cars that they weren't going to build, those crazy concept cars. They had ridiculous stuff on them, like TVs on the roof and tires that can eat mud and stuff like that. But what I liked about it was that it showed what was possible. So one of the things we want to touch on here is just some of the things that internally we talked about as possibilities. So these are all concepts. These are all things that pieces of will probably fall into what goes on in the future, sort of like how concept cars work. But what it wants to show that we are thinking ahead. We're not just working on what we've already got. We're planning for the future. We're throwing ideas around to see what's possible. So the first thing we've got is our adaptive reuse office project. And I promise you, we didn't spend any money on this. Me and my son did this over the weekend one day. Our new office at Jericho Circle is, again, the cornerstone of our rebranding. It's really going to identify who we are as an agency. When people look at a housing authority, first thing they say is, well, where's your building? What does your building look like? Some housing authorities are in downtown high-rises. We're going to have a standalone facility, like we said. It's going to be technologically advanced. It will look nice. It's, we hope to find some development partners that'll work on that land as well, but this piece of land that will have the office is going to remain with the housing authority. We're going to have 10 offices, 2 separate meeting spaces, and a new 500 square foot boardroom, something like that. It will really give the agency a new face. Again, when we talked about in the board, in the March board meeting, the total projected cost was $660,000. We're projecting an actual $400,000. So that's roughly a 40% savings. I'm not saying it'll stay, it should stay around $400,000 given what we talked about. Again, it's a cornerstone of our rebranding strategy. We do hope to work with the city, Rick, if possible. I understand the history of the name Jericho Circle, and unfortunately, it's gotten a negative connotation, and we'd like to maybe give the street a new name. It's not a main thoroughfare. I don't know if that's even possible, but if possible, we'd like to give it a new name, something that is completely removed from all that happened in the past. Again, we did plan for solar panels on the roof. We want to go as green as possible to show, again, that we're thinking ahead as far as an agency, what kind of agency we're going to be. If you look at the savings over 10 years, it's 34% versus renting a space. But beyond 10 years, it's virtually unlimited savings, because every year that we stay in that building, it doesn't cost us a dime in rent. And the construction costs can be amortized. I mean, the longer out you go, the more money we save. Second is something that we have an opportunity to do here. This building, there's a storage room in the far side of the building. We just store old dead files, old computers. Some of the residents here, especially here, are elderly, disabled. The general population of this building is a little older, and they have to go, if they want to purchase anything, all the way down to the, I guess it's the West Shopping Center down here where the Walmart is. Yeah, where the Walmart is, the Walgreens is down there. It's a bit of a hike if you don't have a car. For the items that we can purchase and we can sell reasonably, I thought it made sense to provide a small market inside of this building. That way, some of those residents, they don't have to go, across the street and 3 blocks down to get bread or get a bar of soap or get a bottle of pop. You grab that downstairs. When I lived in Chicago, one of the things I really liked about my condo was that there was a market on the first floor. It wasn't a grocery store, but they had little items that you knew you would need and you would run out of. If I ran out of soap, I could run downstairs, grab the soap, go back upstairs. The same concept applies here. We want to be able to create conveniences for the residents in the buildings that they live in. I think when we talk about really thinking about how the resident lives, how the resident feels, I would always think, well, if it was easier for me to buy certain things, I might buy them in the places more convenient for me.
What's your vision on who runs that?
Gotcha. So, like I said, historically utilized the current storage space in the 1640 building. If it's not a huge space, it's probably about as big as the boardroom maybe. But again, it's a big enough space. If you put a counter in there, you can put a few shelves and get some people in there. We'd like it to be as close to a dollar store as possible. So as much general merchandise as we can sell for under $5, as much as we can sell for $8. I think, considering our customer base, there is a dollar store around the corner, I'm sure. And I go to dollar store a lot, so I'm sure our residents probably visit it as well. So as much as we can compete with them on price, we would try to. We actually, one of the considerations was asking them to come in and rent the space from us as well. So a consideration we gave. Now, and this is a tricky one. My thought on this is, if you're gonna smoke, you're gonna buy your cigarettes. If you're gonna, as an adult, if you want to have a drink, you're gonna buy the alcohol. And if you like to buy lottery tickets, you're gonna do that. Whether we sell it here or whether you have to go 2 blocks to do it, you're going to buy those items. It's safer if they get them here. It's easier if they get them here, and they're gonna get them anyway. So why limit? Yes, we can make a moral judgment about whether it's right or wrong to sell them, but as a housing authority, maybe that's not our place. I don't know. I would say that, we're not going to stop anybody from getting them if we don't sell them. So why not make it convenient for them to purchase these items that they're going to purchase anyway? And to be quite honest, these items make a lot of profit, so it does help. The store would ideally be run by residents, although we would need to hire or have some form of a managerial person. That person could certainly be a resident, though. We would like to maintain control of the store for financial purposes. If there is a profit to be had here, we would like to contain that profit within the housing authority. So those profits can be used to further resident activities, fund capital improvements, make the building a better place to live. That's a little small, but that's a very, very preliminary and basic concept financial breakdown of what it would cost to run, what we would need to purchase as far as supplies, merchandise, the compensation of employees. Basically, at the end of the day, it's $30,000 in non-federal revenue that the housing authority gets that can be rolled back into the Ross program, that can be rolled back into programs for residents in this building. So where, we go back to the vice items, and of course it's a touchy subject, if they go buy those items at the grocery store, that money goes to the grocery store and that corporation. If they buy them from us and we're willing to sell them, that money at least goes back into the housing authority, into programs that might help them stop smoking or help them stop drinking. So if, it does serve a purpose for us to sell all items, all manner of items right here. All right, so the last one is one I've shown around more because my kid was very proud of the exterior. So Maple Terrace is our biggest development. And one of the things we toyed around, Carlos and I especially, was with the idea of renovating that building internally, not doing a tax credit deal, not hiring a developer and paying them $500,000 to do it, but doing the development ourselves. We already have a nonprofit development arm, so we pay ourselves to do the development and turn Maple Terrace into this. The idea would be that we do balconies, we do a new exterior, we take some of the units. There are 188 units. There's studio and 1-bedroom units. We turn those into larger 2-bedroom or 1-bedroom plus loft units. Current unit size is 570 square feet. It's a little tight. When you double that to 1,140 square feet, though, you have a little more room to walk around. It's a little more comfortable. It's a nicer space. We like to have units with balconies. We like to have units that rent at higher markets, at higher price levels. This actually took a little longer. I didn't have this much speech about the picture, so I'll just let it finish. But the idea was to create a building that would hopefully encourage, the same way some of our scattered sites as we've done the upgrades, encourage the business community to be involved in this neighborhood, encourage the residents who live next door to upgrade their houses as well. We've had that effect in some of the communities where we've upgraded our houses. We like to call the residences at 2nd Avenue. Again, you got to get away from some of the public housing associated names. So it's a major rehab at the Maple Terrace property. Similar to how we handle Jericho, except hopefully better. The current residents would receive relocation vouchers and be allowed to move within the city or elsewhere. Now, I don't know how we handled the original relocation, but we like to hire realtors to assist our residents to provide a very hands-on services to helping the people relocate. Again, the building will go from 188 studio and 1-bedroom units to 94 2-bedroom and 1-bedroom plus den units, which would double in size to roughly 1,140 square feet. The rehab work would be financed either through traditional bank financing or through, if approved, a HUD capital fund financing program, which basically takes a portion of our capital fund every year and assigns it to repayment of debt. That allows us to front load, say, 10 years of that amount. So if we took $700,000 a year over 10 years, $7 million we'd have at one time to do this, and then over the 10 years we would just pay back through a piece of our capital fund. The units will be set aside for income groups. Now, even though it's stated very bluntly here, that's no different than what would have happened if we had done an on-site development at Jericho Circle. The developers come in and they make new requirements for moving back in, and oftentimes, excuse me, those requirements have income as or working requirements, and they do exclude some of the residents just naturally. Those residents would have vouchers, so they'd be able to retain housing elsewhere. All development work will be done in-house. We would not hire a developer. We may utilize the expertise of maybe a consultant to assist in some of the areas where we lack expertise, but overall, we would manage this in-house. The financials are kind of interesting on this. I'm sorry, I kind of losing my voice a little bit.
Drink some water.
I tried it. Didn't work out. This is Fiji water. It's too good. One of the things that HUD requires is that 40% of all new admissions be at 30% or below of the area median income. So we've included that. So 38 of the units would meet that requirement. That's 40% of the new units in this development. Each one of those units would have a monthly rent of $450, which is significantly below what you would pay for a two-bedroom. And I think Commissioner Richard pointed out it's about $1,300 or $1,400 for a two-bedroom unit, private market in the city of Aurora. Even at the highest rent level that we'd offer, it would be below the market rate for this city. Because they would be upgraded units, they would look very similar to any apartments you would find, any your Hamleys, your Lincolns. It would look a lot like our scattered site upgrades. We would hope to encourage working families, individuals with a little bit higher income that often in a city of this kind in the suburb get overlooked by the housing authority, and themselves they overlook us because we don't really offer anything that they're looking for. We don't have the kind of units, the kinds of developments that somebody making $35,000, $40,000 a year they're willing to rent. They're willing more often than not to pay more than what is a reasonable percentage of their income towards rent because we don't offer the kinds of units that they need or feel that they can afford. This would begin to address that by providing nicer units in a much nicer environment and still at rents that are affordable for people at the 60, 70, and 80% income level who are they really are about less than 1% of our overall population, and they are a group of people that we are charged to serve. We are just not doing it right now. If you look at the cash flow, based on those rents and those unit counts, and again, all of this is very theoretical at this point, we would make almost $1 million a year in rent. Just so everybody's aware, we pull in about $850,000 a year from all of our properties combined right now. That one property would make more than all of our properties combined if we were to do something like this. The debt service math is a little fuzzy because I just did very basic math. $10 million for the renovations, 4% loan over 30 years, it's $500,000 roughly in debt service a year. That leaves $340,000 in operating cash flow. That cash flow is 27% higher than the cash flow that we currently get out of that development with twice the units. So again, over 30 years, we would see an increase of $2.2 million that we would not have seen otherwise.
Is that building fully occupied?
Basically, yeah.
Where do those residents go?
Right.
They would get vouchers. Similar to something we did at Jericho Circle. All those residents got vouchers and they would relocate. Again, the Jericho Circle situation.
And they could relocate to some of the scattered sites that we have?
They could, yes.
Okay.
I mean, we could.
Well,
There's
but we don't have enough of right now.
This is true.
You
And
have
again,
to remember too, the amount of the vouchers that were issued were not even close to the fair market value for rents.
and that's
A
a
lot of
challenge.
people had to downsize
That is a challenge.
based on the vouchers that were issued. I'm just making
No,
a
no,
point.
I understand.
Oh, that's
So
why I asked the
you-
question, because that's.
You have to, and this is a great plan, but you have to still be able to fulfill the mission of the housing authority, and you have to consider too, that there are protected class people
Mhm.
that will be having to relocate as well.
Absolutely.
if we do something like this, what does the general public who are providing all kinds of houses feel about this? Are they gonna be upset because we're providing better places at lower rents?
These are one bedroom.
Well, not all
Well,
of them,
there'd
right?
be two bedrooms, 2 and 1.5.
Well, that may make them,
No, but if they're coming,
Move
the
there.
people coming out are coming out in one bedroom, so they're gonna have one bed, I mean,
They're gonna have more.
no, but when they come out, I don't know if there's, is there, when they come out, they're gonna have to have a place to live, and how many one-bedroom options are
Right,
there?
exactly. We ran into that problem with the larger size units at Jericho. And again, you know, you have to consider the amount of the voucher that would be issued and the likelihood of people finding one bedroom in Aurora and having the ability to pay, you know, the rest of the voucher or the rent.
My question was more on the business community, the people who are investors. Would they feel positive or negative about this?
You know, and again, this is another thing that housing authorities really don't do themselves. Normally, we're gonna do this, you hire a developer and let them handle all of this. What I've seen typically is, you know, you get a lot of interest from the business community as far as doing upgrades like this, because one, it's a very large development. It's gonna have an improved view in the neighborhood. It's gonna look nicer, it's gonna improve how that neighborhood looks and feels. There are businesses very close to that area of New York Avenue. So I would imagine some of those, you know, with bringing in so many people at higher incomes, it would have a positive impact for the business community, and hopefully a positive impact on the neighborhood at large. I mean, with this level of income, you're starting to see, you know, working families. You're starting to see people who would have a better, you would hope have a positive impact on the schools nearby. You know, who would have a positive impact in their communities. Again, and to Commissioner Cobble's point, it is a very challenging situation because you have 188 people who we still have a responsibility to house, absolutely. And how do we address that? And that's, you know, this is, as a conceptual item, those are all the details. If we decided, you know, at some point in time to go down this road, we would need to iron out well before we started thinking about how to do this, is the real individual aspect of it, the person who's going to be affected by this. How will they be helped through this process? And again, you know, we're kind of presenting this as some of the things that we're capable of thinking through. Sure, if you tell me to do it, I'll do it. But it's more about showing the things that we're certainly capable of as a housing authority. And what shocked me was how capable we were of doing it in-house. I mean, yes, we'll use contractors. Yes, obviously, it's that level of work. But the fact that we can do so without hiring a developer says a lot about who we have.
So if I'm a real estate investor and I'm trying to get $1,400 instead of the $1,200 a year getting, am I gonna be happy or unhappy?
Competition's good for people, isn't it?
That's true. Good answer.
Yes, sir.
now the residents that will be displaced,
Mhm.
they have priority in coming back.
Yes, don't get me wrong, there are certainly residents who would have the income necessary to move back, and then those would definitely have priority. For those who, for whatever reason, didn't meet the income levels to come back, we would give them priority at this property as those units came up, and we would work, you know, again, we would probably work with realtors to help them find suitable housing elsewhere in the city and elsewhere in the region as well. But again, this was just to show the possibility and the overall financial impact of doing something of this nature. That is a recap. Any questions?
Yeah, can you send me that?
Yes, sir. It's a big file. I might have to send you on the drive, but I'll give it to you.
Can we have it too? You guys want it too? I'd like a copy too.
Sure, absolutely.
I wanna be here when it all happens. I don't need it.
You gonna put it on a CD or how do you want?
I can either put on a CD for people, or I can put on one of the little thumb drives for your computer too.
For each person?
Yeah, thumb drives are like
Give me
$10.
one.
CD cheaper?
Hmm?
CD cheaper? CD's probably cheaper.
Yeah, we have CDs sitting around.
Yeah, but on the thumb drive, he can keep loading stuff for us and you can keep it.
That's true. Anytime you want something else, just hand it back to me. We can just-
But it looks good, but still.
And
take
I
into
completely understand,
consideration
yes, absolutely.
the
And
number of
that's
people
the-
that'll be displaced and the
Well, I think that's-
availability of apartments.
I think that's, if you do something that's aggressive like that, I think that's probably your number one, that's gonna be your number one, issue. Is finding places for those
Well,
folks.
Right.
I mean, there's no doubt in my mind,
Okay.
so you never want.
Yeah, I mean, because don't get me wrong.
Nobody wants to be displaced.
The development part is the easier part because that's the kind of development people want. We'll have, I imagine, if we wanted investors in that, we could get them very easily. If we wanted, I mean, the return is there, the money's there to be made. You know, that's not going to be the problem. I think the problem, like you said, is going to be how we handle the human aspect of it, how we deal with the relocation and making sure that everybody's treated fairly. That's very difficult. I mean, in that kind of a situation, there's going to be a lot of fingers pointed as to what we intended to do when we did something like that.
But you know, realistically too, though, you have to look at that being our largest property. And I don't know if that's the oldest property that we necessarily have.
I'm not sure.
But the money that you're spending in that property for upkeep yearly and stuff like that, I mean, you have to turn around and take that into consideration. You can do a lot of upgrades as far as, you know, like the fire and stuff like that. You can do a lot of upgrades in there so that if, God forbid, a situation like that happens again, it might be lessened. I think it definitely will be an upgrade for the community. There's no, in my mind, there's no ifs, ands, and buts about it. One of the other positives, I think, is you know, you're reducing the density, you know, and you're giving people a more comfortable place to turn around and live in. Not that, you know, small, you know, I lived in a efficiency apartment when I was building my house for a couple of months, and it just drove me crazy, you know what I'm saying? So, really, you know, I mean, it gives people room to breathe. I think.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And this is like the ultimate project. We do have other places that are smaller than this where we can learn on it
Sure.
One of the
until you go to the big dogs.
One of the developments that might prove ideal for something similar and on much smaller scale is Indian Trail. It's a development that has probably not intentionally, just has been overlooked a little bit as far as capital improvements, and it's much smaller. It's 36 units. It's very visible though, and that's one of the things, you know, we would like to do some upgrades there because the visibility is right off of Indian Trail.
Sure.
It's a very busy street. People see that every day on their way to work. I see it every day on my way to work, and every day I look at it and I say, well, we probably need to do something like it. Even if it's just in the exterior, because it has the look of what people associate with public housing.
Right.
And it's, you know, so there's the kind of, you know, we take from the conceptual and put some of that into practice there maybe.
Thank you for the annual recap, by the way. It
No
makes a
problem.
lot more sense.
Yes.
Any questions?
Good stuff.
Meeting adjourned.
Actually, can I make a motion that we go into executive session?
We can't, this is a working session.
We cannot?
We
You
don't,
know, we can go into executive, we can in this meeting.
I thought we couldn't.
I
No,
don't
we couldn't have earlier because we didn't have enough people. We can now.
I will be quick and brief, I promise everybody.
You just have to state a reason for
Yeah,
going
that's
in.
To go into employment issues. So that's a motion.
You get seconds.
Second.
Roll call?
Henry Chapin,
Yes.
Bill Powell,
Yes.
Matty Koval,
Yes.
Ray Cruz,
Sorry, guys, yes, I promise you I'll be brief.
Can you take,
Yes.
can you take a 2-minute break?
Yeah.
With him?
See you guys.
All right,
Are you sending us a tiebreaker member soon? Well, if we ever get caught 3-3, we're out of luck here.
That's right.
And I need you to leave the room too.
Okay.
Yeah.
Can I have those forms,
Yes,
please?
ma'am. Somebody wanna just hit the